Alro Steel was founded in Jackson in 1948 by brothers Al and Robert Glick. The company is a distributor of metals, industrial supplies, and engineering plastics. Alro is focused on offering cut-to-size metals and plastics with next-day delivery to over 25,000 customers in North America. Alro has grown to over 70 locations in 12 states and provides a broad inventory of products under a variety of companies.
When I started, I didn't know anything about what I was doing, and I was fortunate enough in day one to start to hire people that liked what they were doing and always exceeded expectations.
Our growth's been based solely on taking care of the customer. Treat people the way you want to be treated. You combine that with our excellent product offering, take that with next day delivery and superior customer service that's just allowed us to continue to grow.
So how did Alro grow from a Jackson startup to a national distributor? That story begins with Louis Glick, Al Glick's father and the founder of Glick Iron and Metal, a scrap iron company founded in Jackson in 1916.
My father, I think, was born in Hungary. He came over on the ship at an early age. My dad pretty much grew up in Saginaw, Michigan. He had to work really hard, and he'd go out and sell newspapers for whatever, and he had to come home with a nickel or he'd get his butt beat. I mean, that's the way that he was brought up. He came to Jackson 103 years ago and was in the scrap business, and he was very poor, but he worked hard and he did things the right way and developed a great business. When my dad started, they had a horse and a wagon and going around and picking up scrap, and then they'd sell it back to the mills. If you take today, they got all this really heavy equipment out, and it's gone 2,000% from all hand to, a lot of heavy equipment doing it. In developing that business, he knew what it was to be poor, and he helped a lot of people that wanted to get into business if he trusted them, and he could help them get started. And he's responsible, along with many other major families, of getting a lot of manufacturing into Jackson going back 100 years ago. My dad, being generous, he was very quiet and done in the background, and there's a lot of things he did that, as I was growing up and after my dad passed, people would come and tell me what my dad did for them. My father treated everybody like they were his best friend, regardless whether they were rich or poor.
The city of Jackson, the Louis Glick Highway, was named after him a few years after he passed away. I think the road was being built then, and the city thought they would honor him with all the great things that he had done over the many years.
I was a sports nut, and I was really involved in baseball, and that's been, believe it or not, the Detroit Tigers had some good baseball teams back then, and I really followed them. We didn't have television then, and I'd listen to the radio, and I got really interested in baseball. I wasn't going to be in this business. I was going to be a sports writer. When I was 14 or 15 years old, I was an entrepreneur. I had my own sports paper. And I had about 100 or 200 customers, and I'd sell it to them for a nickel a piece. And I'd come out, every 2-3 weeks, and I made a couple of dollars that way every week. I had a mimeograph machine. My hands would be all black from the mimeograph machine, and hard to get the ink off. When I was in the 11th grade in high school, I took up journalism in high school. I was sports editor of the high school paper for 2 years. And during that period, we had some great high school football teams, and we had a great football coach called Fortune Solo, and he knew that I liked sports, and I was the head sports editor of the high school paper. So he asked me if I would come out and write a story on the football team every night and give it to the Citizen Pat. And the Citizen Pat liked what I was doing, so they asked me if I'd come in on weekends and take reports from all the small towns around here, whether it was Hillsdale or Albion or whatever. The people would all call in with their scores, and then we'd have to write a little story in for the paper. So I did that for my 2 years in high school, and also the 2 years I went to University of Missouri. And the reason I went to University of Missouri, because I wanted to be a sports writer. And after 2 years at the University of Missouri, I was having some health problems, and so I didn't go back. And in the same time, I was working for this paper for Citizen Pat part-time, and I had worked for my dad's business, Glick Iron and Metal, for many years, and I kind of gave up on that because that's not where my life was going. And one day the editor of the Citizen Pat called me up, And he said, Al, they tell me you're doing a really good job in the sports department and what you're doing. How would you like a full-time job at the paper? And that was my passion. And I said, I'd love it. So we talked for a while, got everything lined up. He says, Al, can you start Monday? Yes, sir, I'm ready to go. He said, we got you covering the place beat. Things went quiet. I didn't know what to say, and I finally thanked the editor and says, thank you for the opportunity, but I don't think I would be very good covering the police beat. But I still worked, part-time at the paper. And that's about all I was doing, because I wasn't working in my dad's business. And this was right after World War II. And my brother had been in service for 4 or 5 years and just got out of service. And in working for my dad, we had a lot of major industries doing war work. And there was a shortage of everything after World War II. And all these plants around Jackson, they had a lot of excess material that was left over from the war. And Bob comes home one day and says to me, why don't you see if you can go match up what their excess what people are looking for? And I looked at Bob and I said, I don't know any more about this table that's right in front of me. And here's the words that changed my life. And the common sense were, he says, Al, what do you got to lose? You aren't doing anything. So I thought for it, and I says, okay, I'll try it. When I first started, I went under the name Alro Steel, A-L-S-T-E-E-L. And I worked out of my dad's office, and they had a telephone there that I could use. For 2 years I did that. I made a little bit of money, but not very much, but I had something really started. And Bob said to me in spring of '48, we should form a corporation, because I was on my own. So we formed the corporation with Bob and I as partners. I'm Al and he was Robert. And it's just the first 2 letters of our names, where Alro came from.
My father was the youngest of 4 children. Robert, Uncle Bob to me, was 9 years older, and there was a lot of older brother respect there. My Uncle Bob, in some cases, was maybe even a second father to my father.
Bob was the brains behind all this. He just pressed a button and told me what to do. And he helped me learn. He was a great teacher, a great person. When we first started, we started a name, and we didn't have a building or anything. And my dad saw what we were doing, and he built a building that was on the edge of the scrap iron property. It was 33 foot wide and about 100 foot long, and he rented that to Bob and myself. That was a little over 3,000 square feet, but we made it work. One thing that happened after World War II, there were a lot of small tool shops and screw machine shops that were developing in Jackson, and they were kind of starting up like I was. And we started working and found out what their needs were. I probably was working 70, 80 hours a week, and it didn't bother me because I enjoyed what I was doing. That's something I'd like to make a comment to anybody, that when you go out for a job in life, make sure you get a job you like, because if you get a job you don't like, you're not going to be a very good teammate and you're not going to go very far. But find a job you like, and it's not work. Where I went to college, I went 2 years to the University of Missouri, but where I got my real business? In the School of Hard Knocks. And going out and making mistakes and understanding it. I didn't know how to read a financial statement back then, because that's not the way I was born up, but I was forced to learn it, and I found out how little I knew, and I think back, how the hell did I ever do it when that was what little I knew? But I had a passion for it and worked hard. And I guess one of the main things I learned is to give great service, and I think we've been recognized, Alro's been recognized over the years. Nobody gives better service in our industry, in the country, than we do. When we first started, we started in that 3,000 square foot building that my dad rented to us, and right around the corner he had another piece of property. That was in 1952, which was 4 years later. Alro got in a position, and we used that property and built a 12,000 square foot building. We expanded that building several times. My father passed away in 1967, and this is one of the growth periods. And in the way my father grew up, he didn't believe in borrowing money, and I didn't know anything about it. But after my father passed, I got with Bob and I said, you know, we got to do something. We're strangling ourselves. We were giving such great service and we weren't set up right to be as efficient. So down at the 803 Belden Road, we put in a very modern, at that time, stacker system for high-rise, and we had to borrow some money to do that. And we outgrew that one about 2 or 3 years, so we started looking for more property. And the property that we're at right now on 3100 East High was available, and we had one bay at this building. It was 71 foot wide and 400 foot long. And over the next few years, we just kept adding bays to it.
As a young person watching us build this new building, that was pretty neat. I was like 12 years old when we moved in here on High Street. We had an open house here. I remember my mom bringing me down after school, and I took people for tours when I was 12 years old through this building. There's a few customers that I meet today that are like, hey, we met you 40 years ago.
And then we got into the industrial business, industrial supplies. There was a company in Jackson called Smith Winchester. There was an old-timer, and back then, towns like Jackson, Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, and Saginaw, they had somebody like Smith Winchester. They handled everything. It could be home supplies or garden supplies, a little bit of everything, and they also had a little bit of steel. They were going downhill, and they were going out of the industrial business, so we took over a lot of their lines and got in the industrial supply business.
A big part of our growth has been acquisitions as well as startups. For every one acquisition Alro makes, we've probably looked at 20 companies. The company has to be a good fit in multiple ways. One, geographically, it has to make sense for us so we can support it with some of the firepower we have in place presently, i.e., where we have presence. And then secondly, the product mix has to make sense to us. It's one thing to acquire a company, but it's another to make it successful after you acquire it. Because some of our acquisitions have been distressed companies that need some TLC to eventually get them performing the way you expect them to perform.
32 years ago, we started in the late 80s. We started in the plastics business. We didn't really know much about plastics, but our customers told us they wanted to buy plastic. It's similar shapes to what we sell in metals, and our customers needed a better supplier. The plastics industry wasn't doing what customers wanted. They told us, we heard it enough, and we went out, learned about it, and got involved in the plastics business. So that's been successful too.
We don't have any game plan to become large, but if the customers need additional services and drive need for larger facilities, more inventory, more people, then we accommodate the customer. Everything we do is customer driven.
One of the things that makes Alro different in our business is my father's love of having inventory. A lot of people in our business don't carry the amount of inventory that we do. We see that as a positive. A lot of companies see having big inventories as a negative because it financially puts a burden on the company. But we see that the only way to give great customer service is to have great inventories.
The whole idea behind Potterville was to give us a central depot for stocking slow-moving items, call them C&D items, cats and dogs that do not get the same turn as our A and B items. However, we have enough facilities throughout the country that all those facilities combined put enough demand on those C and D items that it makes sense to have a facility to stock those. And the other thing it did for us strategically is it allowed the locations, all the other locations, to stock more A and B items, the high turning items.
When we built that back in the late 90s, some of our competitors thought we had finally made a mistake, and we didn't. The building started at 200,000 square feet and now is over 500,000.
I think we're unique in having a Potterville to the industry, but I think it's a key part of why we've been so successful.
With the growth the company has had over the many years, that's given the family and the company the opportunity to do a lot of things to help the Jackson community.
I think the company's had a good impact since 1916 when Louis Glick, my great-grandfather, came to Jackson and started the scrap company. He's always given back to the community. He's helped many other companies that were struggling. Over the years, we've also helped through foundations. Our company has a foundation, and Al personally has a foundation. So through our foundations, we've also helped the community in different ways.
It's something we don't think about because that's the way we were brought up. In 1956, we didn't have a Little League baseball league in Jackson. Some people got together, decided they wanted to start a little, and I helped support Little League baseball. And we started out with nothing and worked together. And what a great job the people have followed up since then, and really feel proud of, especially the Southwest Little League in Jackson. How it's grown since then really makes me feel happy. My dad wanted a lighted baseball field in Jackson, and they never had one. And Bob and I started putting funds away. About 10 years ago, Jackson High School was looking for a lighted field, and they came to us, and we supported it. But we supported it with one condition, that it's got to be a community baseball field. Every school in the area, or every baseball team in the area will have the opportunity to play in it. And right now, it's the best field in the area, with artificial turf on the infield and lighted. It's just a great facility. Because my brother went there and he came back and told me about it, that's probably made me a Michigan fan. Probably 20 years later, I was at a golf outing and I met some of the coaches. Lloyd Carr came to the University of Michigan in 1979, and I met him when he first came in. Lloyd and I became great friends. Lloyd's one of my best friends right now. When he was head football coach, he said there's one thing that we really need, and we need a football building where we can practice when we go to bowl games and the weather's bad. They didn't have it. And with Lloyd's urging and so forth, we helped support the new Michigan football building, which is a full football field inside, and that supported the program. The athletic program has been a great thing for the University of Michigan and all its student athletes. We've supported the athletic department and the Mott Hospital. The Mott Hospital is one of the great children's hospitals in America, and we feel so proud to be involved in that. I can't tell you how many people that are aware of that have come up and thanked me, and how Mott Hospital saved their children's lives. Dave actually grew up right next to the Jackson Country Club, and he started out as a caddy. As he grew up, he really worked hard at the golf game, and he turned pro in 1959. In 1965, he was about to give up the golf game because he said he couldn't make enough to support his family. And for 1965, Hancock Manufacturing and Alro helped Dave. Bob Hancock didn't want to go any further, so starting in 1966, we had a contract with him for 1 year. And it's one of the most amazing things, because, Dave was Dave. There's probably never been one like him, but his integrity was unbelievable. We never had a contract after 1966, and it was all on a handshake, the agreement we had with him. And he'd wear a hat. I never could get a hat with Alro on, but I always had the Michigan. But he'd wear an Alro hat. His golf bag had our name on. Sometimes he'd wear a shirt with Alro on. And in 1969, Dave developed into one of the top players in the world. Doing that, we get Alro. We were so small back then. We were getting all kinds of national publicity because of what Dave was doing. And Dave put Jackson, Michigan on the map back then. He came to my brother and myself back then and said, "Bob and Al, I've got a company that wants me to carry their bag and all the stuff that I'm doing for you." And he said, "They have offered me so much money. You guys are just getting started, and I know you can't afford it." And then he qualified it. He said, "As long as you want me to, I'm always going to continue doing what I do for you, and I don't care what you pay me, but if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't be out here." Until Dave passed about 8 or 9 years ago. For over 40 years, he represented us. I'm getting ready to retire June 1st of 2048, and that'll give me 100 years. I'm down to half days now. I'm down to 12 hours a day, and I just turned, a couple of days ago, my 93rd birthday. And I have to say, I got one of the best gifts I've ever had on my birthday. I got up that morning. And every day I get up as a birthday present for me. But with Randy and Brian, and along with Dave Schmidt, our president, and Steve Layton, they're going to be the ones that really take over.
The most important factor is the culture we've built in Alro.
As far as culture, I think the honesty and integrity and loyalty is a big part of who we are. It's do what you say you're going to do. If you talk to a customer and offer them something, you better make sure you're going to follow through. If something goes wrong, you're going to make it right away and then worry about how you make it right later.
We try to have everybody engaged and hopefully passionate about what they do, because in order to be successful, you have to be passionate about what you do. We always say if every teammate of Alro gives us their best every day, we don't have to worry about the competition. The competition will have to worry about us, and that's really been our philosophy. It starts at the top with Al Glick, setting the tone.
He's always trying to make us better. He always worries about, someday he won't be here, and to make sure he's told us everything. He's here coaching us every day.
We got great people working together as a team, understanding how important it is to take care of the customer. But you don't do it by yourself. You got to have a team working together.
Al's created an unbelievable team. It's the team, to steal something from the University of Michigan. We work together. It doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as we score the touchdown. From a business standpoint, the impact we have on manufacturing, I think, is great. You have many different types of manufacturing customers in the Jackson area that have access to all the metals and plastics that they need in a next day fashion. It's superior service for our customers locally. And that's helped them grow their business, because without them, we're nothing. There's other people they can buy metals from, but we need a strong manufacturing base for us to have people to sell metals to. So us making them do things faster, more cost effective, in the long run is great for Alro. So it's a win-win.
Our future is pretty much up to our imagination. I see us continuing to grow. It's really just how much we want to.